second topic we'll get to at 2 is going to be about tools. And that's when we'll really get a lot of hands-on the gear and stuff, all right? So, anyway.
Kim, why don't you tell us who you are, what you do?
You want to come over here?
Yeah, I do.
You can use my microphone even if you wanted to, but I don't think you need to.
It's gonna not be in the dark.
Yeah.
So I'm a creative director by day, and I work in marketing and branding and strategy. So I oversee a variety of products. Most recently, I ran a program called the Intel Experience, where we got people excited about technology, and we ran 50 different locations with 6 different interactive installations for Intel all over the country and then all over the world within their gaming initiative. For probably the Oculus Rift, which we launched inside the Intel Experience, and then I oversaw the Oculus rollout globally. And I'm also like an experimental video artist and installation designer. So I play live video synthesizers with bands and tour and make really strange sculptures with screens and electronics. That's about it.
And exploring new territories all the time.
Pretty much, yeah. Ferociously curious, ridiculously driven.
So, real quickly, what I didn't mention is in the house also is Simpistruct. You might know her as Ginger.
Hi,
And Ginger's set up with one of her mini pieces. Okay, and these two talk on the side and are basically
We're brewing.
network. And we have Mr. Tarek Dukes checking his phone, but he's going to be like making amazing beats. That's 2 hours out. It didn't ring. He's not in trouble. Tarek is like blessing us with his presence in his sounds today. So we are so lucky to have him because usually he costs $5,000 an hour. Like so. Right. So he'll be really taking the music. I just had a playlist and that's just whatever, but then the real stuff's going to happen. So, Kim, like, maybe start with like corporate stuff back in the day when you got out of wholesale and your first stuff with like at Leo and stuff.
Yeah.
And, like, what's the typical like corporate experience that you had, and then how did that like affect where you are now? Like, did were you satisfied or unsatisfied with it? Was it cool? Was it uncool? Did it drive you to do different things, or were you just always doing different things?
I always did different things. I chose a multimedia degree because I wanted to have more tools and like my tool set of what I can use to make things. So it was never kind of like, oh, I'm just going to do this one thing, like that's it, peace, like I'm going to retire at 65. So I got into advertising because I wanted to not have to worry about selling my art. And I wanted really falling in love with advertising because there's some really interesting psychology of design. And it's really kind of the same thing. Like you make a piece of art because you want somebody to feel something, or you want somebody to think about something, or see something that you see. And commercial art is very similar, though the end result is that usually you want the person to buy something, or think something, or feel something if you're lucky. But usually it's buy something. And that was a really fun challenge, and I gravitated towards it. So really early on, I started working at Leo Burnett, and really found that I like advertising. I like the challenge of it, and it afforded me the opportunity to be really free with my art and to kind of have that live as more expression and not have to worry so much about kind of the balance in the art world because it can be really brutal. And there's such a like linear track of like you get your MFA and then you open up the space and you get rep by a gallery and then you're in the Whitney Biennial, and you never make money till you die. And that was like not super fun, and I'm kind of into fun.
How'd you get into Leo Burnett?
Placement.
Oh wow, really full-sale placement.
Yeah.
Was that the first thing they got you, or?
That was it, right out the gate.
Boom,
Yeah.
Bingo.
They had another grad that was working there, who actually was Mac's lab instructor, who was my lab instructor.
Lindsay McCauley.
The lovely Lindsay
At the
McCauley.
Colony.
Who's now at the Colony. And I had been freelancing and doing like kind of like crap videos and just like shooting concerts and editing them, and really, really loved motion graphics. And the beginning of my career was all centered around kind of video production and post. So I stayed really tight with placement, and they knew that I was in Chicago, and then when there was a position open, they're like, all right, like this is it. Like you've trained up, we're gonna put you in, get ready. And I wound up landing that job, and even though it was like the gruntiest of grunt jobs, I really loved it. And it's funny too, like a lot of times you're like, oh, that's like the most unsexy job ever, but it was for like this, like one of the biggest ad agencies in the world, arguably the biggest, oldest one that's like still doing decent. but I was a VTR tech, which is like a video janitor. So I oversaw the archive department. I learned a shit ton about analog video relay. That informed a lot of what I do with my art now and my kind of love of the grittiness of analog video signals. And it's funny because like still now, you know, it's been, let's just go with over 10 years since I worked there. And still now, like when people see my CV, they ask me about it. And they're like, oh, what was it like to be at Leo Burnett? And I'm never like, oh, well, you know, I was in a dark closet with a giant machine. But I got exposure to a lot of stuff while I was there and a lot of internal stuff. And it taught me a lot about how advertising works. And then stacked up the next job and the next job. And very quickly I moved into the boutique world and used what I loved in interactive and what I knew in motion graphics to kind of build a really specialized skill set, moving into being a creative director pretty young and overseeing kind of the growth of that boutique, because when social media came on the scene, there were a lot of folks that weren't really ready for that, but because I had such experience in design and interaction and in motion graphics, I kind of could understand the idea of utilizing time as a narrative and building these narratives in space with people, and became pretty successful through building out that department. And then moved in from there, kind of focusing more on software. I wanted to know more about building large enterprise software, so moved into a more UX UI role, built software for a few years, and started my business, Make Amazing, and I've been doing that for a few years while also kind of moving back in agencies when kind of there's a really great project, overseeing strategy for a number of years for a bunch of Jim Beam's liquor brands and Macy's, and working in multicultural advertising, and then into experience design. So kind of the specialty that I sit in is doing these really kind of large programs, so things that exist over a certain amount of time, and overseeing how creative can morph and change and be really fluid. So creating decision-making trees within strategy so that you have an idea and a campaign, but how does that campaign live over a really long lifespan? And then how do you sunset that campaign in an organic way to bring in a new message to be able to pivot within your audience? And inside of that kind of mentality of strategy, building out kind of tours and events and shop-in-shop installations like for Intel that have these physical spaces, but they also have two-dimensional design print, you know, materials. They have social media and interactive campaigns online. And then they have these like crazy pieces of technology that are typically games or like learning experiences and things like that.
So, amazing corporate background and amazing network. I had a question, but I'm not even going to ask it. Here's a question I was going to ask.
It sounds like you're going to ask
10-second answer.
It sounds like you're going to ask. Not making.
I'm going to ask it. From Burnett, how many people are still in your network from there? Like how like does that grow? But I didn't want to get into a long thing about that because I want to go into the art next. Creative process.
A lot. I mean, definitely. The funny thing about Burnett is that it's a funny alumni network. So even though I was there like a bazillion years ago, there's a lot of us that were there a bazillion years ago. So there's like lots of really funny like ex-Burnetter LinkedIn groups and stuff like that. So I see a lot of those people, and the motion graphics meetups. I still see Lindsay and other folks that I knew from that time.
And so that definitely amplifies all your opportunities. And you know,
it's all like
the perception of you is like what gets you these other opportunities.
Yeah, for sure. Like I don't really look at any opportunity, whether it's like a show or a job or coffee with a person, as like an isolated incident. I always like to explain like my view on my life is that I have this like metaphysical net, like this huge like ass net, and I'm just like dragging this ass net like through time, and like objects get stuck in there, and people get stuck in there, and like memories get stuck in there.
Have you trademarked that?
Assnet?
Yeah.
Assnet.com?
Yeah.
Pretty sure that exists.
Probably already
I don't think we want it. I don't think we want it. Maybe that'll be in like the book that I'm gonna write now that I'm taking this little sabbatical.
So I was gonna ask like just initialization of a job, like an agency gig, but also then in parallel, you answer both of these at the same time, over time. How do you start?
Coffee.
How do you get a new piece going? A new like you just showed some new pieces in a show. So.
Yeah, I had an opening last week. Yeah, I had an opening last week for a series that I'm building of experimental self-portraits, sculptures. The first of which was a piece called Pranayama about the difficulties that I have with my own breath and lung health. I mean, usually it's because I book the show and then I'm like, fuck, I have to finish. And I
So
think
self-imposed deadlines because you want to do it, right?
Yeah, and I've like accepted as I've gotten older that like part of my process is to fuck off. So like,
that's cool.
I used to spend like, 70% of the time like stressing out and being like, I'm fucking off, I really need to work. And now I'm just like, oh, I'm fucking off, it's the fuck off time. And then 30% of the time I jam hard. And like I've learned that about myself, and I know that I excel in it, and I know that I'll hit the deadline, I'll make it happen. But even I had I'm on a project right now called Mike Reed's Flesh and Bone, where I'm playing an analog triptych installation with these 5 jazz musicians about this neo-Nazi protest in Poland that they got trapped in, and it's a really difficult setup. It's like a custom piece of electronics, and we hadn't been in the space until 48 hours before the show, and I literally was cabling, like, as people were filling into the lobby, I was having problems with converters because there's a lot of, like, analog to digital stuff that, like, was flying in that day to be able to play the show, and it was really, really stressful, but it worked out just fine. So
do you feel any pressure from being from Chicago? Is there a certain, like, level of expectation of an artist from the Bauhaus city? As a designer,
we're the flyover zone. You know what I mean? Like a lot of people don't think about Chicago. It's because it's a flyover city. Everybody's New York and LA. So I think I can get away with a little bit of like, corn. This is what we're doing, kind of stuff. Which is one of the reasons I'm excited to do more touring, and I do a lot of talks and traveling internationally and stuff because I like thinking in that more global landscape of being a creative. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely, when you have an audience, when people fucking pay to sit and watch you do something, it's incredibly stressful, and there's an incredible amount of pressure. And, it's one of the reasons a lot of times, when I talk with younger folks, they look at my rig, and this isn't my full rig that I brought out, just to be clear. But I play with some older analog equipment, and a lot of times I'll have a VHS player with me. And younger folks will be like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, why are you carrying around this VHS tape? Like, you're 5'2", like, that's ridiculous that you're carrying all this gear. But VHS tape doesn't crash. VCRs don't crash. And for the 1 out of 100,000 shows that you get a blue screen at, every single person that paid money to be there will always remember that happened. There was a moment, my computer's asleep. So, I didn't change my power settings. That's a thing. So yeah, like that stuff is really important, and I can be pretty old-fashioned about it. Did I answer that question?
Sure.
I think so.
Cool. Do you guys
believe
have
so.
any more questions while Mac's out?
Questions about Mac?
Yeah, like anything about Mac?
Like, get him out now while he's out
Yeah,
there.
like I had him as a teacher too.
So what percentage would you say your current work experience is between corporate and kind of your own thing?
Right now, it's fully my own thing. So I actually, I went from running just my business, Make Amazing, to going back in-house with one of my clients, Walt Isaacson, about 3 years ago, just over 3 years ago. I had been in a car accident, which is a pretty difficult thing to come back from when you're working for yourself. And I was lucky enough to have a client that was really cool, and they were like, just come in-house, we'll sort it out. And then I got poached. I was at that job, and I got poached to run this Intel project by another agency. And when they came to me about it, they were like, hey, we have this huge cave, and we've got this project with like augmented reality and holograms, so we're gonna launch VR. And I was like, done, like sign me up. So then I stayed there for 2 years, and I'm just going back, and I'm taking kind of a corporate sabbatical, so like I'm not taking clients that are, non-independent business, not of kind of my ethics set for a little bit, and because I'm gonna be touring on and off in the fall and in the winter. So right now I'd say it's higher than usual. Usually if I can get close to 50-50, it's a good life. But it's hard. It's like super duper duper hard. I'm lucky that I like corporate life, and it's one of those things like if you're an artist and you go at that game and you're like, I gotta change who I am and like play the game by their rules, and like you're gonna be fucking miserable. But if you walk in and you're like, oh, like this is a game that I can decide my rules and like I can make myself comfortable, you can be pretty cozy. And there's definitely a decent amount of weirdness, which I like.
Weirdness. That's a good one opportunity.
Pardon?
Want an awkward segue?
Yeah.
Cool. You're all about this, right? So,
This is when I back up.
because we're at the time point where I wanted to change. So, as artists, sometimes when you're designing for a space or for a performance or for a piece that involves an audience, we talk about the line between the performance and the audience. And I designed this to have that line at first. Like you guys are on this side of the console, and Kim's over there, Ginger's over there, Tarek's over here with us. You know? But I think it's time to move on out and break onto the stage and get in here and start playing around. But we're going to do this on the hour because we all get to talk to Kim and hear her. But if we turn it into the party, then one or two people are talking to her. So that's why I'm going to ping pong it back and forth. Just so you know, the design reason why.
Okay.
But Tarek, if you would like